Laura Ingram in for Joe Scarborough. Thank you, Joe, for having me sit in tonight. The intersection of faith and politics, perhaps more important this election than ever before, from issues of partial birth abortion to gay marriage to embryonic stem cell research, which involves cloning of human embryos. With me now, Bush advisor Ralph Reed, and he used to be the executive director of the Christian Coalition, and author Sam Harris. He wrote the book, The End of Faith, Religion, Terror, and the Future of Reason. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Laura.
Ralph, let's start with you. I've noticed this trend in the media where we see people like Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton campaigning in primarily African-American churches in places like Florida, and the media's report of this is always, oh, isn't this interesting grassroots politics? Yet when President Bush speaks about his faith or goes to African-American churches or evangelical churches, it's always, oh, this is a disturbing blur of religion and politics, separation of church and state. Do you notice that trend?
Well, I think there's clearly a double standard, and I don't think we've ever seen that double standard more dramatically underscored than in 2004. John Kerry has openly campaigned in churches, which George W. Bush has not done. John Kerry's campaign on their website urged faith-based activists to distribute Kerry partisan campaign literature in the churches in clear violation of both Internal Revenue Code and federal election campaign law. Basically putting these churches in legal jeopardy. And John Kerry has quoted scripture to personally attack the president. So I think John Kerry has used religion as a weapon and as a means of dividing. And I think the president sees his faith as something that unites and doesn't divide, and something that is a force of compassion and hope and healing. And I think there's a very dramatic contrast. I don't know how big of a factor it will be in the election, frankly. I think that I just got back from Florida this morning. I'm on my way back there tomorrow. I can tell you that we've got 10,000 precinct chairs and co-chairs in each of the 6,734 precincts of that state. People are fired up, they're ready to vote, and they're coming.
Let's go to author Sam Harris. Sam, in your book, The End of Faith, in one passage you talked about a religious conviction in some cases being like almost a mental illness, and you and I discussed that the other day on my radio show. I want to put up a graphic on the screen which discusses people who attend religious services regularly and those who don't, and we're going to go through it. Those who attend religious services regularly, 63%, according to Pew, last time they did this poll, voted Republican. Only 37% voted Democrat. How do you explain that?
Right. Well, I think this electorate really is divided perfectly along religious lines. As you say, there's no greater predictor of how someone's going to vote on Tuesday than church attendance. And I think this should be very troubling to all of us, because the double standard we really should be talking about is how faith gets a pass, how unjustified religious beliefs gets a pass in discussions of social policy in a way that no other form of irrationality gets a pass. I mean, if I come on your show, the one thing you don't have to respect about me are my mere beliefs. You ask for good reasons. When I believe something strongly without evidence, you dismiss me. If I believe the Holocaust never happened, you dismiss me. But if I tell you that I know that the creator of the universe is against gay marriage, and I know this because I know a certain book was written by God, you have to give me a pass,
Sam,
and I think we're paying a terrible price for that.
Sam, I think you would concede that you're not a man of deep faith. I mean, you grew up in a secular household. Your parents were secular. I assume you're atheist, right?
Well, no, I actually believe that there is a range of human experience.
But you're not Christian or Jewish or Muslim exclusively. You're just kind of all things at one time, right?
I believe that it is genuinely dangerous to think that one of our books was written by God, because the contents of the book pit us against other people, pit Jews against Christians against Muslims, and there's no way around that.
Let's talk about what you said in your book, and I'm going to get Ralph to comment on this as well. You quote Gary Wills, who's a writer as well, and you said Gary Wills has noted that the Bush White House is, quote, currently honeycombed with prayer groups and Bible study cells, like a whited monastery. And then you wrote, this should trouble us as much as it troubles the fanatics of the Muslim world. Sam,
Right.
I got to tell you something. That sounds like the old style anti-religious bigotry that we used to hear when it was applied to Catholics in the early part of the last century. And yet you write this as a Stanford academic with this great sense of triumph. And I don't know about you, but I think most Americans aren't afraid at all that the fact that President Bush prays. They actually find it empowering themselves.
Right. If you were praying to Zeus, however, they would feel very differently
He's
about
not praying to Zeus, Sam. Let's get Ralph Reed into this. Ralph, I got to tell you, I think it's religious bias, and I think what Sam says in his book is actually reflected oftentimes in the reporting of some of the mainstream newspapers, this kind of looking down your noses at people who have Bible studies or people who pray or people who believe that abortion is the killing of life.
Well, I think it's really unfortunate because, as you said, Lori, it really is an old-style politics. It's a politics of exclusion. It's a politics of really unmerited suspicion of people whose only crime is to have a faith. And you know, John Kennedy addressed this in 1960 when he ran as a Catholic, when there was still that kind of feeling about Roman Catholics. And he said that the issue in that campaign, and this is a quote from his speech on September 12, 1960, before the Houston Ministerial Association, obviously an overwhelmingly evangelical audience. He said, "The issue in this campaign should not be what kind of church I believe in, for that should matter only to me. The issue in this campaign should be what kind of country I believe in." And it seems to me that that ought to be the standard upon which you measure a public servant. So George W. Bush shouldn't be measured or judged by critics or fans based on what kind of God he believes in or church he believes in. That's a personal matter. What should
Ralph,
matter
the
is,
situation we're in.
If I could just finish, I didn't interrupt you.
Sure.
Let me just finish this statement.
Okay.
It should matter what is his strategy to win the war on terrorism. What is his strategy to provide home ownership, which, by the way, is now to 1.56 million minority households have homes that didn't have it when he came in. What's his strategy to lower the achievement gap between minorities and whites, which, by the way, is happening as a result of No Child Left Behind? And what's his plan to strengthen the economy and create jobs? And that should be the only thing that we discuss in a campaign.
Sam, we'll give you the last word, but the problem with the Democrats is that they've really alienated a lot of people of great faith, and you see that in the Pew Research poll. And I don't know what your solution to that is. I mean, I imagine you're probably more Democrat than you are Republican, but I'll give you the last word.
Well, I just think the issue here is deeper than politics. We are in a situation, to take one domestic policy issue, stem cell research, where you can get on the floor of the Senate or stand in the Oval Office and oppose the most promising line of research in biology
that's a lie,
on the basis
Sam.
of
Sam,
first century ideas. It's not a lie if you're a biologist.
Embryonic stem cell research, which I assume you're talking about, you obviously haven't studied the idea because it's created tumors and rejection and the overwhelming number of patients in clinical trials.
That is pure propaganda.
It's actually not. It's actually scientific. But I wish we could continue on stem cells, but we can't.
Okay.
Sam Harris, the author of The End of Faith, Ralph Reed, advisor to the Bush campaign, and we appreciate you both joining us.